Hi Booktube, it's Sina from Beating Around the Books, and this is a tag video. It's very off the cuff. I've only seen this today on, was it today or was it yesterday? Anyway, on Courtney Ferret's channel. It is the ratings and reviews tag, originally created by Scott and Nell, the original tag King and Queen and King, right? Anyway, from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. This is accompanying a very interesting discussion video that they've put up just before that, in which several booktubers are talking about their review and rating system and what kind of language they use to portray the qualities of a book. And you should all check it out, both the original tag and that video. It's a bit long, you're gonna have to make some time for it, but it's worth it in my opinion. Okay, so I was kindly tagged by Mark Nash, although I'd already weaseled myself into being tagged secondarily by Courtney Ferret because I really wanted to do this one. Anyway, let's just get into the actual tag video. Oh, also, apologize for this weird background. This is me trying to find a place to film that is not my lounge when my husband is doing stuff in there, like meetings and whatever, but also not my bed, so the camera doesn't keep doing the thing that it kept doing in the last video I filmed on the bed. So this is the best I could come up with. Anyway, right. Prompts. Number 1, tag folks, because Scott and Nell like to tag people in the beginning. So my usual suspects for this kind of tag video have already been tagged, but there are quite a few channels that I have found recently or got in touch with recently via my read-along, so I would like to tag some of these folks. First of all, Rosie Cockshut. I feel like she would have very interesting things to say about her rating system, hopefully anyway, because she seems like a very different personality to me when it comes to these things. She seems very organized, and I'm more of a, how do you say this? Fly by the seat of your pants sort of thing. Then I would like to also tag Michelle Lexi, who is currently doing Vlogmas. Maybe she's still got space for a Vlogmas video to do this tag in. Then also, let me figure out the exact name of the channel. Oh, Paper Knot Books. So, not K-N-O-T, Paper Knot Books. And last but not least, Bookworm Adventure Girl. So I would love to hear from you how you rate books. So, question number 2. How do you know you've just finished a good book? Is it a thinking or a feeling response? I find it really difficult. I think it's a mix, or it depends on what kind of book it is. I finished a good book when I close it immediately. So does that mean it's an intuitive feeling, or does it mean that my thoughts have already formed during the reading process? Again, I think it's a mix, and I do feel like there's a huge difference between reading a good sort of romp and reading a good book that has been challenging in some way, be that the language employed or the structure or the ideas that are conveyed. I think I'm leaning slightly towards the thinking part. I've certainly had some sort of books that I had a very strong positive reaction towards that did not age so well in my mind. So I guess in that moment then it was a feeling response, and then later when I gave it a bit more thought, I was like, no, this is not actually a 5-star read. This is way too thin, or too shallow or whatever. I guess it was sort of the equivalent of some sort of junk food that leaves you hungry half an hour later. Is this an answer? We're going to go with this as an answer. Then we have 3. When you begin to form your review/rating, what is the first question you ask yourself? How do I review this? I don't really review books that much anyway. I just chat about them, and I mean, I've only done 2 like single book reviews, and they're probably not, they don't classify as proper reviews either, I'm assuming. What question do I ask? Do I even ask myself a question? I don't know. Because obviously I think about the book while I'm reading it, and there's gonna be certain things that appeal to me as a reader. A lot of that has to do with language, wordplay, wit, interesting ideas, even though interesting, as we have now found out after you've watched Scott and Nell's discussion video, is quite an empty description without any sort of qualifier. Let's put it this way: if it's something that will land somewhere between a 4 and a 5, then usually I sometimes have an issue, deciding between 4 and 5. And that's when I will start asking myself questions in terms of like, where does this stand in comparison to the last book that really, really impressed you? That was, a definite 5-star. And, did it provide enough food for thought and sort of challenged you in the right ways, made you think differently or for the first time about some sort of idea or aspect of life and being? If yes, then this is a 5-star. If not, most likely a 4-star. Okay. I knew this was going to be a long one. I do apologize. Okay. Next one. Number 4. Do you do star ratings? Why and why not? Well, clearly I do. I've been talking about stars. Why? Good question. I don't think I ever thought about books in terms of star ratings before I found Booktube. I mean, I knew about Goodreads, and I also knew that, of course, Amazon has star ratings on their, underneath the books that they're selling, but I don't think I've ever thought about them like that myself. So it must have been a Booktube thing, and joining Goodreads and hearing people talk about star ratings. So that's why I just adopted the same thing. Obviously that's a very reductive thing to do about a book. It's not worth a lot, just having the star rating in there without any sort of knowledge of who is rating this and so on and so forth. But I'm assuming this will probably come up later down the line. So if yes, explain your star rating system. What does a good book get in your rating system? Is your star rating consistent, i.e. are all your 5-star books better than all of your 4-star books? Okay. So, what does a good book get? Okay, a good book will get a 4 or a 5-star rating. Obviously, 5 would be great, excellent, fantastic, choose your hyperbolic adjective of choice. A 3-star is usually something that was kind of fine, but really not great, nothing to write home about. And that can be for various reasons. Often there'll be these more plotty books that unfortunately just don't offer any more than a reasonably entertaining story. Or there might be books that had a promising premise, sorry, and then didn't deliver, but not in a way where it was offensive, you know. That will be a 3-star book. 2-star is something that I definitely did not enjoy, would not recommend. Whereas, you know, a 3-star might be a recommendation for certain people, if I can sort of discern that they might get more enjoyment out of it than me. But 2-star, I would definitely not recommend. Again, for various reasons, bad writing, you know, stupid plot. Probably shouldn't, you know, don't understand why it was published. And 1-star, I think I've only ever given, well, I've not been rating books for that long, but I think I've only given one book 1-star because I felt properly betrayed about the time wasted. And again, this was also a promising premise. And yeah, she took it not just nowhere, she took it into the realm of the laziest stereotypes. It wasn't believable. It was such a waste of an interesting idea that I'm still angry about it. So there you go. 1-star is offensively bad or incredibly offensively disappointing. Okay. Is your rating consistent? I don't know. I feel like, you know, it is quite a lot of it is a bit down to whim and intuition. And certainly when it, you know, when there's a question, are all your 5-star books better than all your 4-star books? And like I said, I've had these moments where I've reconsidered a 5-star rating and downgraded it, or even 4-star ratings, whatever. I've also upped my rating on certain books that have just lingered in my mind for much longer than I'd previously thought. And, you know, where I guess, you know, realized later on that there was more to it and that, yeah, whatever. But then I do tend to go and correct them if, you know, if the impulse is that strong. And then there's the other issue of, I recently had this because I read a historical novel, and it was a historical novel with a bit of mystery strewn in there, right? And it was good for what it meant to be, and therefore it was a 4-star book. But on the other hand, I have read other books that I found much more engaging on an ideas level and or language level that also got 4 stars because they were slightly flawed, you know, flawed enough to not warrant the 5-star. But do I think that's probably a better book for me personally than the historical fiction? Probably. But I feel it wouldn't be fair to compare one with the other within the same rating system and say, well, anything that only does this and this and this can never be a 4-star, even though it never set out to be anything more than that. Can you tell that I'm conflicted? Yeah. And every so often I will go and look at my sort of, you know, my top reads and blah, blah, and again realize that there's some 4-star book that actually stuck in my mind a lot longer than a 5-star read. So I guess I'm inconsistent. But I try not to be. Okay. Do you believe every book has its perfect reader? Does this contradict the idea that a book can be bad? What a weird question. I find that very difficult. I mean, clearly there are certain readers that will get more enjoyment out of certain books than me. There's plenty of shit books, excuse me, that are very, very popular. Do I believe that there's still a shit book? Yes. So I don't know if there's a perfect reader for anything. But yeah, you know, there's a certain kind of readership that will be much more satisfied with a certain type of book than others will be. I don't think it contradicts the idea of a bad book. No. I think there are bad books in the world that... Yeah, what can I say? I've read some of them, but not a lot, luckily. Right, number 6. What book that you hated have you recommended? None. I don't think I would ever recommend a book I hated. I might recommend a book that I did not personally enjoy, where I could see that others might do, but certainly nothing that I hated. I don't think that would happen. Unless I wanted to give somebody a good example of what a shit book is, I guess, but that's not really a recommendation, is it? Number 7. What makes a book good, bad, or great by your evaluation? I think this links in to a video I did after Brian did it, which was about what kind of reader am I? You know, like my top reads of the year or something, and what does that say about me as a reader? And I figured out that I'm less about character than I thought I was, although that's not to say I don't care about it at all. What makes a good book? What makes a good book? For me, language plays a huge role in my enjoyment of a book. I don't care as much about plot, although if it's incredibly unbelievable, you know, I reserve the right to still be annoyed about that. So language, in terms of, well, it's so difficult to describe this, but you know, beautiful prose that is in some way inspiring or evocative, or it's very clever. Like I said, I love a good wordplay. I also really like, weirdly, I like it. I especially appreciate long run-on sentences that don't feel forced and somehow read really elegantly. You don't come across it so often, I feel. But yeah, that sort of thing. I love learning new words. So I love an author that has a larger vocabulary than mine, which is not so difficult, I guess. I am, after all, not a native speaker. So language, that's one. I love unconventional form. Not all of it, but I love the idea of unconventionality, let's put it that way. And then we'll see if it's well executed or not. I love things that push the boundaries of what fiction or novels can do, and how that go beyond this that very limited scope of this sort of realist Victorian novel. It's not just the Victorian novel, but what I mean is you know, that's when this sort of got cemented. It feels that, you know, this is what a novel is. Other thing, so if it's not unconventional and the language isn't amazing, do I like the book still? There's a few that I still read that are just really entertaining because, I don't know, they're just a romp, like I said. Like, there's a few things like, I read the occasional urban fantasy or something where I just like this sort of world building, I guess. But would I say they're an amazing book? Probably not. But they're all right. And then, what is the other question here? Well, what makes sorry, that was good. I mean, I guess that would be a great book, and then a good book is, you know, anything along those lines, but then just a bit flawed or maybe lacking in one of those aspects. And then bad, well, there's plenty of things that can make a book bad. Bad writing, for one, which, you know, the worst extreme is, of course, when it's literally like grammatically incorrect, words misused where you can tell, oh, the author meant to use so and so word, but they didn't. I know this sounds like incredibly presumptuous, but I have read a book like that, and I was really annoyed because the words they used did not make any sense, and I knew the word that sounded similar that they meant to use. Plus, God, there were typos in there as well, so definitely it could have used an editor. So obviously that's terrible. Stereotypical characterization and tropes. Just bad ideas in general. Lazy writing. We're not talking about language here. Lazy writing in terms of, plot just not being properly thought through and developed, and just these sort of deus ex machina type of resolutions. All that makes a bad book, in my opinion. Okay. Yeah, and flat characters. 8. When evaluating the quality of a book, do you have specific criteria or aspects of the book, such as character development, that you consider? Does this change if you are writing an in-depth review versus just thinking about the book for enjoyment? I feel like I've just answered that question before. Excuse me. So yeah, I guess there are specific, well, not specific criteria. I don't like go down a checklist, right? But yeah, there are certain things that will make me think this is good and this is not good. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I've basically answered this, haven't I? Now, is there any difference? No, because I don't think I've ever written an in-depth review. And neither have I filmed an in-depth review. I have attempted to do so twice. I've said this before. I feel like, they obviously went in depth more than my random ramblings in wrap-ups. And that it doesn't change. I mean, when I did the in-depth thing, I would maybe, just try and sort my thoughts a bit more and try to find good examples of what exactly it is that I enjoyed. Whereas if I just talk off the cuff, I might not give it as much thought. And otherwise, well, yeah, I think about books for enjoyment purely apart from when I write papers, but then that has nothing to do with reviewing anyway. So that's a whole different story. Great. Number 9, do you consider star ratings or average ratings when choosing books to read or to add to your TBR? No, not really. I don't think, it's difficult to not see them when you go on Goodreads. But no, I don't think like a low star rating has never made me go like, oh no, I'm not going to read it now. I might, if I find a book that sounds interesting and I look on Goodreads and I see it's sort of a very mixed, like the average is quite, somewhere around the 3. I might be really interested in seeing what are the 5-star reviews saying, what are the 1-star reviews saying, and then, what are the 3, and do I find something nuanced? And because, like, even out of a review that's trashing the book, I could actually figure out that this might be exactly my type of thing. As well as out of a 5-star review, I could also maybe glean the realization that this is not for me. So I find that quite interesting sometimes. But then again, that's when I read the reviews. I don't just look at the ratings. And normally I get my I get my recommendations not through the ratings, but through what people I follow, whose taste I share, or whose taste I feel I can sort of gauge, and what they have to say about their reading. So no. Number 10. Who on Booktube does reliable and interesting reviews of books that you can use to decide if a book's for you or not? What makes their reviews so good? So both Courtney and Mark have said, there's a difference, of course, between people who just have a similar taste to yours, and therefore you know that when they like a book, there's a high chance that you will too. Which is probably, yeah, there's probably mainly people like that I get my recommendations from. I mean, there's this ongoing thing in Mark Nash's videos where Brian, Roz, and me all complain about our book buying habits, that, you know, he just keeps mentioning new books that nobody's heard of that we now all want to read. So Mark Nash is definitely one of the booktubers who have probably like gotten the most of my reading recommendations, at least this year. But then I really enjoy Roz's reviews as well. I don't think I would say we have the same taste. I can tell certain things that she likes will probably not be to my liking. However, the way she describes her reading experience will give me a very good insight into that. Like, even if she's really enthusiastic about it, she still manages to sort of convey, you know, the qualities of a book and whether or not that'll be qualities that I'll appreciate. And I think similarly, Bob the Bookerer, although, well, he tends to be so enthusiastic about a lot of his reading that, you know, sometimes I feel like I have to take it with a grain of salt. But no, I think, yeah, he's really good at sort of pointing out the interesting themes, whether there's any sort of cool, unconventional form to enjoy there, and also language. So yeah, those are 3 booktubers that I really, really trust to an extent. And one of the newer ones that I've also mentioned before is Fraser Simons, Springboard Thought. Now, he reads quite widely compared to me, I feel. So I wouldn't just, you know, read anything that he liked. But he's really concise and to the point. Does that? I think those 2 things probably mean the same. Anyway, when describing what he liked about a book, what annoyed him about a book, and so on. So he seems, you know, he's just a lot more sort of well thought out, and, you know, he's, yeah, than me. Clearly, I'm just rambling. I can't say that he's like the person I go to for recommendations or whatever, because I haven't yet read a book that he's put on my radar. But there are several on my radar, one of which I don't know when I'll get. This shipping issue is just ridiculous. But anyway, so I guess, what's it called? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. We'll see about that. But I feel like he gives me a good idea about, you know, what to expect from a book. Yeah, this is certainly not an exhaustive list, but I shall stop it here because I've been talking for much too long already. And I'm not even finished. Number 11. Does that or those booktubers use different language than you to evaluate and review the overall quality of a book? I would say yes. I think most of these people, no, all of these people are much more eloquent than me. They do not keep repeating the same word over and over and over again, like interesting or compelling. They, I think, all value, well, to some extent, they value certain similar aspects or the same aspects, and then they all have other sort of either niche interests or, you know, a certain amount of enthusiasm for X, Y, and Z thing that really comes through when they speak about books, which I appreciate. And I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah, go check out Scott and Nell's video. It's really interesting. And yeah, I hope you have a lovely evening, and I shall speak to you soon. Bye bye.